morning children, I hope you are all doing good by the grace of God. Today I am going to tell you a story about a father and his two sons. The elder son was a very obedient boy, but the younger son, he had lot of bad friends and he always enjoyed being in the company of his bad friends. Bad friends teach you to do bad things. They teach you to go in the wrong way and they destroy your life. So many precious lives have been destroyed because of bad friends. You must be very careful as to what kind of friends you make. How do you know whether they are good friends or bad friends? Good friends will teach you good things, but whereas bad friends will teach you bad things. Now, this boy wanted to enjoy all the time with his friends, and his friends taught him, they told him, why not we go to a faraway country and enjoy our lives and have fun. So, this boy went to his father and said, Father, you divide the property and give me my share. I want to go to a faraway country with my friends. The father refused. He said, no, my son, it is very bad for you. But the son kept on asking him, day in and day out he was forcing his father. So the father got vexed finally and he decided to divide the property and gave the younger son his share. The younger son went away with his friends, very happily. Jolly makes you gali. So this, they all had fun. Of course, they had real fun. They enjoyed themselves in all sinful pleasures. But then slowly the money started decreasing. After a few months, the friends realized that the younger son had less money. So one by one, the friends left him. Finally, all his friends had left him and he had no money. So he decided to look for a job. And you know what? He managed to get a job of rearing pigs, of taking care of pigs. He was so hungry and he did not get enough food. So he even thought of eating the pig's food, it seems. At that time, he remembered how the servants in his father's house were treated. Even the servants got very good food and they lived very well. The condition was good, but now here his condition was so bad. So he thought, let me go back to my father's house and ask my father for forgiveness, and then let me ask my father to make me his servant. I cannot ask him to make me his son again, but let me beg him to make me his servant. So he went back to his father's house. The father saw this younger son walking towards the house. So he went running, it seems, and hugged the boy, and with eyes full of tears, he kissed him. He was so happy to see his son. Then the son said, sorry father, sorry daddy, I did so much of harm to you. I have destroyed all your wealth. But then let me become your servant. Now I wish to become your servant. But then the father said, no, don't forget about it. I am so happy to see you. And so he took him back, and then there was a big celebration, it seems. See, father's love is unconditional. Unconditional means mother and father, they don't expect anything from you. When they love you, they don't expect anything in return from you. But others are not like that. So you must give first priority to your parents' love. And above all, God's love is the most supreme kind of love, because God says, I will carry you like how a father carries his child. You know, when you were small, your fathers used to carry you in different ways, right? Likewise, God will carry you, it seems, till the end of your life. He is ready to carry you. So, first love is God's love. Second love is your parents' love, your brother, sister's love. You must give importance to this love. And then only your friends and other relatives and so on and so forth. And you must be very careful as to what kind of friends you choose. Bad friends will teach you only bad things. Good friends will teach you good things. So, you must make only good friends. With this in mind, shall we bow down our heads and pray? Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For yours is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. God bless you all, children. Take care.
Okay, good morning, children. So, we will start with the lesson chemical bonding today. So, in our daily life, we come across many substances, and we know that all the things or substances are made of atoms, right? So, atom means it will not exist as a single atom. Many atoms combine together, they form a molecule. Okay, so now what is a molecule? The group of atoms are called as molecules. So, the atoms are grouped, right? While grouping like that, there must be a force of attraction between the atoms, right? So, that force of attraction between the atoms is called as the chemical bond. Okay, now we will define what is a chemical bond. What is a chemical bond? A chemical bond may be defined as a force of attraction between the atom that bind them together as a unit called molecule. Okay, so except the noble gases, all the elements exist as molecules. Okay, so have you learnt about noble gases? In the last lesson we have learnt about periodic table, right? So where is noble gases located? They are located in the last group number 18. What are noble gases? Can you name them? They are what? Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon. These are called as the noble gases. And what is the speciality about noble gases? They have stable electronic configuration, completely filled electronic configuration. Okay, so they do not combine with other elements, so they are also called as inert gases. Okay, so except noble gases, all the elements combine, all the elements or atoms will combine with the other atom to form the molecules. Okay, so next we learn about Kozal-Lewis approach to the chemical bonds. Okay, so Kozal and Lewis proposed a theory based on the electronic configuration. Okay, so they have studied about the electronic configuration of the noble gases. Okay, so what is the first noble gas? You know, that is helium, right? So what is atomic number of helium? 2. So what will be the configuration? Again 2. The configuration is 2, right? So next, what is the next noble gas? That is helium and neon. Okay, so neon, the atomic number is 10, and the electronic configuration will be 2, 8. 2 in the K shell and 8 electrons in the L shell. Okay, next noble gas is argon. Okay, argon, the atomic number is 18. Okay, so what will be the configuration now? 2, 8, 8. So if like this, if you see all the noble gases, they will have 8 electrons in the outermost shell or the valence shell. What is the valence shell means? Valence shell means outer electron, outermost shell. Okay, so all the noble gases have 8 electrons in the outermost shell except helium. In helium also we have 2 electrons, right? So 2 electrons is present in the K shell. The maximum number of electrons that K shell can accommodate is only 2. Okay, so all the noble gases have completely filled electronic configuration. Otherwise you can say they have stable electronic configuration. Okay, so they need not gain or lose electron or share electron to attain the stable electronic configuration. They already have the stable electronic configuration, right? So based on this they propose a theory called octet rule. What is the octet rule? So all the elements except noble gases, they try to attain the configuration of the electronic configuration of the noble gases by losing electron or gaining electron or by sharing electron. Okay, so all the elements what they are trying to attain the configuration of the noble gases. Why so? Because the noble gases are the stable electronic configuration. Okay, so let us see what is octet rule now. The tendency of the atoms to have 8 electrons in the valence shell is known as octet rule or the rule of 8. If there is 8 electron in the valence shell means outermost shell. Okay, so if there is 8 electron, then they will have a stable electronic configuration. Okay, so all the atoms or elements will tend to have that 8 electrons in the outermost shell by gaining or losing or sharing of electrons. See, the elements tend to have stable valence shell, that is 8 electrons, either by losing or gaining electrons, otherwise they can share the electrons also. Okay, so the atoms that have 1, 2, 3 electrons in their valence shell, if there is only 1 electron in the valence shell, what they will do, they lose that 1 electron and they will attain the stable electronic configuration. Likewise, if 2 and 3 electrons are also there, they will lose the 2 and 3 electrons and they will attain the stable electronic configuration. Whereas if the outer electronic configuration is 5, 6 and 7, they will try to gain the electron. If there are 7 electrons now, they will gain 1 electron and become 8. Okay, so they can attain the stable electronic configuration. If 6 is the valence electron, they can gain 2 electrons and become 8. Okay, so like that. So if there are 1, 2 and 3 valence electron, they will lose those electrons. If there are 5, 6 and 7 electrons in the valence shell, they try to gain the electrons. Now we will see an example here. First example is sodium, right? Sodium, what is the atomic number? The atomic number of sodium is 11. So what is the configuration? 2, 8, 1. Okay, so configuration is what? 2, 8, 1. It has 1 valence electron, right? So it can easily lose that electron, and after losing the electron, what will be the configuration? 2, 8. The valence shell has 8 electrons. It has formed the stable electronic configuration. So see here in this picture, right? So it has 3 shells, right? K, L and M. In the M shell, you have only 1 electron. So it loses that electron. Now after losing that electron, what will happen? Sodium will become sodium plus. Okay, whenever an ion has a positive charge, we call that ion as a cation. Okay, so it becomes what? Sodium plus, sodium cation by losing an electron. Now if you see, there are only 2 shells, right? K shell and L shell. In the L shell, how many electrons are there? 8 electrons are there. So it has attained the stable electronic configuration. Actually, this is the electronic configuration of neon, right? So the atomic number of neon is 10. So now the number of electrons in sodium plus also 10. So it has gained the nearest electronic configuration of the noble gas. Okay, another example is chlorine. What is atomic number of chlorine? 17, right? So what will be the configuration now? 2, 8, 7. Okay, so how many electrons are there in the valence shell? 7 electrons are there. Okay, so what it can do? It can gain just 1 electron and it can attain the stable electronic configuration. Okay, so if you see here in this picture, you have 3 shells, right? K shell, L shell and M shell. In the M shell, you have 7 electrons. So this chlorine gains an electron. So if an atom gains an electron, it will have a negative. It will gain a negative sign. So it becomes chlorine anion. Okay, whenever an atom has a negative sign, it is called as an anion. Okay, so chlorine after gaining a electron becomes Cl minus. Now see, the gained electron is shown in the red color, right? So this is a what? This is an example for the octet rule. Next one, Lewis dot structure. So as I told you, atoms combine with the other atom to form a molecule. While doing so, the valence electron will be involving in the reaction. So it will be easy if we can represent the valence electron in the symbol of the atom itself. Okay, we write symbols, right? So for hydrogen we write H, oxygen we write O, nitrogen we write N, right? That is a symbol of the atoms. So it will be easy to understand if we can represent the valence electron along with the symbol. That is called as a Lewis dot structure. We can represent the number of valence electron along with the symbol of the atom with the either dot or crosses. Okay, so to represent the number of valence electron present in an atom. Okay, that is called as what? Lewis dot structure. The Lewis dot structure or electron dot symbol for an atom consists of the symbol of the element surrounded by dots representing the electrons of the valence shell of the atom. It represents the number of valence electron in the atom. The unpaired electron in the valence shell is represented by a single dot, whereas the paired electron is represented by the pair of dots. If we have only one valence electron, we can just put it as a single dot. If we have two electrons, two electron means pair, right? So we can put it as a pair, or two single electrons also we can represent them. Okay. Symbols other than dots like crosses or circles may be used to differentiate the electrons of the different atoms in the molecule. So see the table column now. Hydrogen is there, atomic number is 1, right? What is the symbol for hydrogen? H. So what is the number of valence electron? Only 1. So we can represent that one electron with a dot like this. And helium, what is atomic number? 2. The configuration will be also 2. The number of valence electron is 2. So the symbol for helium is 2, and we have to put 2 electrons around the symbol. Then beryllium, what is atomic number? 4. What will be the electronic configuration? 2, 2, right? So what is the valence electron? How many valence electrons are there? 2 valence electrons. So again we have to put beryllium, symbol is Be, 2 electrons, we have to represent as 2 dots. Carbon, atomic number is 6. What is the configuration? Electronic configuration? 2, 4. Number of valence electron is 4, and we have to represent it as 4 dots, right? Nitrogen, 7 is atomic number, configuration 2, 5. How many valence electron? 5. Valence electron means outermost electron, 5. So we have to represent it as 5 electrons, 5 dots. Okay. Then oxygen, what is atomic number of oxygen? 8. What will be the configuration? 2, 6. So 2, 6, what will be the valence electron? How many valence electrons are there? 6 valence electron. So 6 electrons, we have to put 6 dots. So we can represent those 6 electrons as 3 pairs. Okay. So as represented here, we can represent them as 3 pairs of dots. Next one. Types of the chemical bond. Okay, so as we already told you, atoms combine to form molecules. So they can combine in different forms. Okay, based on those combinations, their properties and characteristics also differ. So there are different types of chemical bonds are there. Okay, there are different types of chemical bonds possible between atoms which make the molecule. Depending on the type of bond, they show different characteristics or properties. So what are the different types of chemical bonds? So first it is classified into strong bond and weak bond. So under strong bond you have 4 types. One is ionic bond, covalent bond, coordinate bond, metallic bond. And weak bond we have two things, that is hydrogen bond and van der Waals interaction. Okay, so in this lesson we are going to learn about 3 bonds. Okay, that is ionic, covalent and coordinate bond. Other things you will learn in the higher classes. Next one. So we'll start with the ionic bond. Okay, what is an ionic bond? It is a bond formed between the ions. What are ions? Actually, what is the difference between the atom and the ion? Atom means it is electrically neutral. Ion means it has either a positive charge or a negative charge. Positive charged species we call them as a cation. Negatively charged species we call them as anions. Okay. So when a bond is formed between a cation and the anion, we call that bond as a ionic bond or electrovalent bond. Okay. So there is an electrostatic attraction between the positive charged species and the negatively charged species. We know, right? Opposite charges attract, right? So we have a cation and anion, both are differently charged. Okay, so they attract each other and form a ionic bond. An ionic bond is a chemical bond formed by the electrostatic attraction between the positive and the negative ions. Okay, the atom that loses electron will form a cation. Okay, so which one will be the cation and which one will be the anion? Okay, now see the example below. You have a and B. Okay, so in this A is there, no, the compound A gives away the electron. Okay, it gains a positive charge. Why it gains a positive charge? Because an electron has a negative charge. Okay, so we are removing a negative charge, so it gains a positive charge. Okay, that is A plus acts as a cation, okay, and the one which receives the electron, B, right, B compound receives that electron, so it gains a negative charge, then it is a anion. So there is a force between the cation and the anion, electrostatic force of attraction, okay. So an ionic bond is formed by this method. These oppositely charged ions come closer to each other due to the electrostatic force of attraction and thus form an ionic bond. As a bond is between the ions, it is called as the ionic bond. Why it is called as ionic bond? Because it is formed between the ions, right? So it is called as ionic bond. And the attractive force being electrostatic, the bond is also called as electrostatic bond. So it has three names, right? Ionic bond, electrostatic bond, and also electrovalent bond. Since a valence concept has been explained in terms of electrons, it is also called as electrovalent bond. Now we will see an example for this formation of the ionic bond in sodium chloride. Okay. Now see, first sodium is there. Okay. So what is the atomic number of sodium? 11. So what is the configuration? 2, 8, 1. Okay. So again chlorine, what is the atomic number? 17. Okay. So I already told you this, right? What is the configuration? 2, 8, 7. Okay. Now if you see the configuration itself, sodium, if it loses one electron, it will attain the stable electronic configuration, that is, it will have 8 electrons in the valence shell. Okay, chlorine 7 is there, no, in the outermost shell. If it gains 1 electron, it will attain the stable electronic configuration. Okay, now this sodium donates its 1 electron to the chlorine, and the chlorine will accept that electron, and it forms an ionic bond between. Now which one is a cation and which one is an anion? Sodium is giving the electron, right? So it is a cation, it becomes Na plus, whereas chlorine is accepting the electron, right? So it will become Cl minus. Okay, so now sodium is a cation and the chlorine is a anion. Okay, so it forms a ionic bond like this. Okay, after the formation of Na plus and Cl minus, what will be the configuration of sodium? 2, 8. What will be the configuration of chlorine? It is 2, 8, 8. Both of them has attained the stable electronic configuration, having 8 electrons in the valence shell. So we will see another example for this. Formation of ionic bond in the magnesium chloride. What is the, first of all, what is the formula for magnesium chloride? MgCl2. Okay, one magnesium atom, 2 chlorine atoms. Okay, so magnesium. What is the atomic number of magnesium? 12. Okay, so what will be the configuration now? 2, 8, 2. It has 2 electrons in excess. Yes or no? 2 electrons are in excess now. If it removes the 2, if it gives away the 2 electrons, it can attain 2, 8 configuration, neon gas configuration. Okay, now we have 2 atoms of chlorine, right? So both of them will have 17 electrons. The configuration will be 2, 8, 7, right? So each of the chlorine atom will need 1 electron to attain the stable electronic configuration. Okay, so magnesium donates 2 electrons. Each chlorine atom has needs 1 electron, right? So now magnesium, after donating a pair of electron, it will become Mg2 plus, right? And 2 chlorine atoms, after receiving 1 electron, they will become 2 Cl minus. So they combine together to give you MgCl2. Okay, so as you can see, the extra electron that is added to the chlorine atom is shown in the red color. Yes or no? Each chlorine atom receives 1 electron. So magnesium gives 2 electrons to each of the chlorine atom, and thus forming a ionic bond. Okay, now we'll see the characteristics of the ionic compounds. First one is physical state. Okay, so ionic compounds, it is formed by what? Ionic bond is formed by the electrostatic force of attraction between the ions, right? Oppositely charged ions. So the force will be very high. Okay, so they have a geometrical structure. Okay, they exist as a crystalline solids at room temperature. They are, all the ionic compounds are solids at room temperature. Then next one is electrical conductivity. These compounds do not conduct electricity in the solid state. Okay, most of the compounds will not conduct electricity in the solid state. So now how electricity is conducted? By the movement of the electrons. When it is in the solid state, the electrons cannot move from one place to another, but when we apply some temperature, it can just vibrate in their own places. Okay, they cannot move from one place to another. So in the solid state, the ionic compounds also do not conduct electricity, but in the molten state, okay, that is a semi-solid state, they can conduct electricity. For example, sodium chloride, that is a common salt, will not conduct electricity in the solid state, okay, but when you dissolve in the water, right, so it is a what? Salt water, right? Salt water is a good conductor of electricity, right? So when we dissolve in the water, what is happening actually? When we dissolve the ionic compound in water, they will separate into ions, okay. For example, take sodium chloride as example. When we dissolve sodium chloride in water, it will become Na plus and Cl minus, charged particles, right? So they can conduct electricity very well. So what do we infer from this? Ionic compounds in the solid state, they do not conduct electricity, but in the molten state they conduct electricity. Melting and the boiling points. Melting and boiling points are high for the ionic compounds because electrostatic force of attraction is very high and we cannot break them easily. Ionic compounds have high melting and boiling points since there exists strong electrostatic force between the cations and anions. Solubility. Ionic compounds are soluble in the polar solvents like water. Actually, there are two types of solvents, polar solvents and non-polar solvents. What is a polar solvent? When polar compounds are when a bond is formed between two atoms which have much difference in the electronegativities, okay. Electronegativities and all you will learn in higher classes, okay. So when the electronegativity difference is very high, they form a polar compounds, okay. So one such example is water, okay. So ionic compounds are soluble in polar solvents, but they are insoluble in the non-polar solvents such as benzene, carbon, tetrachloride, etc. Okay. Next is the density, hardness and brittleness. Ionic compounds are high density. They have high density and they are quite hard because of the strong electrostatic force between the ions, okay, and they are highly brittle. Even though they are hard, they can be easily broken. They are breakable easily, okay. Then reactions. Ionic compounds undergo ionic reactions which are practically rapid and instantaneous. These ionic compounds undergo reactions at a higher rate, okay. Next one. So we have just learnt about ionic compounds. Ionic bond. The next bond that we are going to see is a covalent bond. Whenever you hear the word covalent, it means nothing but sharing of electrons, okay. So in the previous one, what happened? One atom gave one electron to the another atom, right? So here what happens? One atom and the other atom will share the electron, share a pair of electron or one electron also, okay. So that shared electron is common for both the atoms, okay. So that is called as a covalent bond. Covalent bond is a chemical bond that involves the sharing of the electron pairs between the atoms. Since a covalent bond is formed because of the sharing of the electrons, it becomes common to both of the atoms. It is also called as the atomic bond. So covalent bond is also called as the atomic bond. So see here, we have atom A and B, okay. Now this A also donates the electron, B also donates the electron, and it is shared between A and B, okay. If you see, these two electrons are common for both A and B, okay. So this is, and thus they form a covalent bond. So we'll see some examples for the formation of the covalent bond. First one is formation of the hydrogen molecule, okay. So what is the atomic number of hydrogen? 1. Only one electron is there, okay. So now this is in the which shell? K shell. K shell can accommodate only 2 electrons, right? So but here we have only 1 electron. When both the hydrogen atoms combine together, the 2 electrons are shared between the 2 hydrogen atoms. So these 2 atoms are common for both the hydrogen atom. Now both the hydrogen atom have 2 electrons in the K shell. Thereby they have attained the nearest noble gas configuration, that is helium, okay. Next one, formation of covalent bond in chlorine molecule. Okay, chlorine, two chlorine atom can combine with each other, forms a covalent bond. Okay, so you know what is atomic number of chlorine? 17, right? So what will be the configuration? 2, 8, 7. Okay, so now we need one electron, right, for to attain the noble gas configuration or stable electronic configuration. So now each of the chlorine atom can give one electron or share one electron, and those two electrons are kept as common between the two chlorine molecules, sorry, two chlorine atoms. Okay, now if you count and see, you have to take those two electrons common for both the chlorine atom. Now you can see that both the chlorine atoms will have 8 electrons in their valence shell, thereby attaining the stable electronic configuration. Next one, formation of covalent bond in methane. Okay, what is the formula for methane? CH4. In CH4 we have 1 carbon atom and 4 hydrogen atom. So what is atomic number of carbon? 6. Okay, so what will be the configuration? 2, 4. So how many electrons you have in the valence shell? 4 electrons. How many you need to attain 8 electronic configuration? 4, right? We need 4 more electrons. Those 4 more electrons are given by the hydrogen. Actually it is not giving, it is shared by the electron. Okay, so see here, it is shared by the hydrogen atom. Okay, so if you see here, each hydrogen atom is sharing 1 electron, and this carbon atom is also sharing 1 electron. If you count this number of electrons, there will be 8 electrons for the oxygen, and for hydrogen you will have 2 electrons, because only K shell is there. No, K shell can accommodate only 2 electrons. So there are 2 electrons for hydrogen atoms and 8 electrons for the carbon atom. So this is how covalent bond is formed in the methane molecule. Next, formation of covalent bond in the oxygen molecule. What is atomic number of oxygen? 8. Okay, so what will be the configuration now? 2, 6. So the number of valence electron is 6. So we need 2 more electrons. Okay, so the 2 more electrons is shared by the 2 oxygen atom. Okay, each oxygen atom share 2 electrons. Okay, so if you see here, they have shown the difference by showing the electron as stars, one of the electrons of the oxygen as stars. Okay, so if you count all the electrons, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each oxygen will have 8 electrons in their valence shell. Okay, now see how many electrons are shared here. Totally 4 electrons are shared, right? So a bond means we can say it is 2 electrons. 2 electrons can form 1 bond. Okay, now here how many electrons are shared? 4 electrons are shared. So how many bond it can form? 2 electrons can form 1 bond. Okay, 4 electrons can form 2 bond. So it is represented as O double bond O. Okay, so it means what? It is a double bond is formed. Okay, so it is a you can say the bond order is 2. Okay, next one, formation of covalent bond with the nitrogen molecule. Again here the atomic number is 7, configuration, electronic configuration is 2, 5. Okay, so now what is the valence shell? Number of valence shell is 5, valence electron is 5. Okay, so how many electrons you need more to form the stable electronic configuration? We need 3 more electrons, right? So those 3 more electrons are shared by both the hydrogen atom. Now if you see how many electrons are in common now? 6 electrons are shared, right? So each 2 electrons can form 1 bond. Then 6 electrons can form 3 bonds. So here 3 bonds are formed. A triple bond is formed. So nitrogen is a triple bonded compound, okay, or molecule. Next one, characteristics of the covalent compound. Physical state, in the ionic compound they can be only solids, whereas in the covalent compound they can be in all the 3 states like solid, liquid and gases. Okay, covalent compound exists in gaseous, liquid and solids form. Example for gaseous state is oxygen, example for liquid state is water, and example for solid state is diamond. Then electrical conductivity, since there is no charged particles here, there will be it will be a non-conductor of or bad conductor of electricity. Covalent compounds are bad conductors of electricity. Melting point, except few covalent compounds, they have relatively low melting points compared to the ionic compounds. So comparing covalent and ionic compounds have low melting points, okay, except few things, that is diamond silicon carbide. Okay, next one is solubility. Covalent compounds are readily soluble in non-polar solvents, opposite to ionic compounds, right? Non-polar solvents like benzene, okay, they are insoluble in the polar solvents like water. Hardness and brittleness, they are neither hard nor brittle, but they are waxy and soft. Okay, next, reactions. Covalent compounds undergo molecular reactions in solutions, and these reactions are slow. In the ionic compound, the reactions are very fast, right? Whereas here the covalent compounds undergo reactions which are very slow. Next one, Fejan's rule. Okay, so this is important topic. Okay, so Fejan's rule says about the covalent character in a ionic compound. We know what is ionic compound. When positive and the negative charge ions they combine, they form the ionic compound. But there is some covalent character in some of the ionic compound, that is explained by the Fejan's rule. Fejan's rule is related to the covalent character in the ionic bond or ionic compounds. This is a set of rules formulated to predict whether a chemical bond is ionic or covalent. So with the help of the Fejan's rule, you can predict whether a compound is ionic or covalent. Fejan's rule are formulated by considering the charge of the cation and the relative size of the cation and anion. So these two points are the Fejan's rule. Okay, first one is, when the size of the cation means for positively charged species, is small and that of the anion is large, then the bond is more covalent. If the size of the cation is small and anion is large, then the compound is covalent. Okay, greater the charge of the cation, greater will be the covalent character. What do you mean by greater the charge of the cation? When the cation has 2 plus 3 plus as a charge, then it will be a covalent character. So what is the difference between the ionic and the covalent compound? Ionic compounds should have these things, okay, these set of rules, whereas covalent should have these things. Okay, ionic compound should have low positive charge, large cation and small anion, whereas covalent compound should have high positive charge, small cation and large anion. Next one, coordinate covalent bond. There is a last type of bond we are going to see in this lesson. So in the covalent bond, what did we see? It is formed by sharing of electrons, right? So here also the electrons are shared, but the electrons are coming from only one atom. Okay, so one atom is giving a pair of electron and the other atom is just receiving the electron. Okay, so the one atom which gives the electron, pair of electron, is called as the donor atom, and the one which receives the electron is called as the acceptor atom. Okay, so in some compounds the formation of covalent bond between the two atoms takes place by sharing of two electrons, both of which comes from only one of the combining atoms. This bond is also called as coordinate covalent bond or dative bond. The atom which provides the electron pair is called as the donor atom. So as I already told you, the electron which is donating a pair of electron is called as the donor atom, and the one which accepts a pair of electron is called as the acceptor atom. Then the coordinate covalent bond is represented by the arrow. Like this, it is represented by this arrow, and the arrow comes from the donor to the acceptor. It represents what? The electron is moving from the donor to the acceptor, which points from the donor to the acceptor atom. Coordinate compound, the compounds containing coordinate covalent bonds are called as coordinate compound. So see here, if you see in this picture, compound A has 2 valence electron and B has 6 valence electron. Okay, now if these 2 electrons of the compound A is shared between these both atoms A and B, A will have 2 electrons again and B will have 8 electrons. So they both attain the stable electronic configuration. Okay, now A is the donor atom which donates a pair of electron, and B is the acceptor atom and is represented by the arrow mark from A to B, from donor to the acceptor. Now we will see an example. Okay, a coordinate covalent bond formed between ammonia and boron trifluoride. Okay, so here which is a donor molecule? Ammonia is the donor molecule and boron trifluoride accepts a pair of electron. So it is represented as what? NH3, arrow mark BF3. Arrow mark is put between what? A donor atom to the acceptor atom. Next one, characteristics of the coordinate covalent bond. Physical state, these coordinate covalent compounds also exist in all three states: gases, liquids and solids. Conductivity, since there is no charged particles, they are also bad conductors of electricity. Melting and boiling point, these compounds have melting and boiling point higher than those of the purely covalent compounds but lower than those of the purely ionic compounds. So the melting and the boiling points are intermediate between the ionic and the covalent compounds. Solubility, insoluble in the polar solvents like water but are soluble in the non-polar solvents like benzene, carbon tetrachloride and toluene. Reaction, these compounds undergo molecular reaction which are slow. These are the characteristics of the coordinate covalent bond. Next one is, so the next topic that we are going to see is oxidation, reduction and redox reaction. Okay, so in our daily life, when we cut apple and keep outside, what will happen? It will become brown in color, right? Similarly, brinjals, potatoes, when you cut and keep outside, what will happen? It will turn into brown color, right? The color changes. And rusting of iron is also a best example for the oxidation. All this happens because of oxidation reaction. Okay, now we are going to learn what is oxidation and reduction. So whenever we say oxidation, three definitions are there. One is for addition of oxygen, second one is removal of hydrogen, third one is loss of electron. These three are called as what? Oxidation. What are those? Addition of oxygen, removal of oxygen and loss of electron. Reduction means opposite. Okay, addition of hydrogen, removal of oxygen and gain of electron. Okay, so whenever we say oxidation and reduction, you have to remember all the three definitions. Okay, so we'll see examples. The chemical reaction which involves addition of oxygen or removal of hydrogen or loss of electron is called as oxidation. See the first example, 2Mg plus O2 becomes 2MgO. In the reactant side you have Mg, magnesium. Magnesium has gained the oxygen, so it is addition of oxygen, so oxidation reaction. Calcium hydride, CaH2 becomes Ca plus H2. And hydrogen atom is removed, right? So it is removal of hydrogen. So again oxidation. Here next one is Fe2 plus becoming Fe3 plus by a removal of or a loss of electron. So loss of electron is oxidation. Next one is reduction. The chemical reaction which involves addition of hydrogen or removal of oxygen or gain of electron is called as the reduction. Okay, so whenever these three things, any one of these three things happen, it is reduction. Okay, see the first one, Na plus H2 gives 2 NaH. Okay, addition of hydrogen and it is reduction. CO plus H2, Cu plus H2O, removal of oxygen, right? Then it is called as what? Reduction. Fe3 plus gains the electron and become Fe2 plus, gain of electron, again reduction. Okay, so this is about the oxidation and reduction. Next thing is redox reaction. What is redox reaction? Both oxidation and reduction reaction happening simultaneously in a particular reaction is called as redox reaction. Okay, both oxidation and reduction happening simultaneously. Okay, a reaction in which one reactant undergoes oxidation whereas the other one gets reduced is called, during the course of the reaction, are termed as redox reaction. Okay, see the first example, PbO plus C gives Pb plus CO2. Here PbO, lead oxide, has become lead, removal of oxygen. Removal of oxygen is what? Reduction. Whereas carbon has become carbon dioxide, addition of oxygen, which is oxidation. So reduction and oxidation taking place simultaneously is called redox reaction. Next example, zinc plus copper sulfate gives copper plus zinc sulfate. Here we had only zinc, it has become zinc sulfate, addition of oxygen, oxidation. Copper sulfate has become only copper. Okay, so removal of oxygen, reduction. Okay, so both the things happening, redox reaction. Okay, so next, what is oxidizing and reducing agent? The substances which can oxidize other substances are called as a oxidizing agent. Okay, then what is reducing agent? The substances which can reduce other compounds or substances are called reducing agents. We'll see some of the examples for that. Substances which have the ability to oxidize other substances are called oxidizing agent. These are also called as electron acceptors. Okay, so other name for oxidizing agent is called as electron acceptor, because they remove electron from the substances, from the other substances. Example is H2O2, okay, hydrogen peroxide, MnO4 minus, CrO3, Cr2O7 2 minus. These are the few examples for the oxidizing agents. Next one is reducing agent, substance which can reduce other substances called as a reducing agent. Okay, substance which have the ability to reduce other substances are called reducing agent. These are also called as electron donors. Okay, why? Because they donate electron to the other substance. Example is sodium borohydride, lithium aluminum hydride, and metals like palladium, platinum, etc. These are the few examples for the reducing agent. So next we are going to learn about oxidation number. Okay, so oxidation reactions in our daily life. Okay, what kind of oxidation reaction we are coming across in our daily life? The shining surface of the metal tarnishes, like your anklet, no, silver anklets become somewhat black in color, right, after some few months or something like that. Okay, it is because of what? Oxidation reaction, due to the formation of respective metal oxides on their surfaces. The freshly cut surface of vegetables and fruits turn brown after some time because of the oxidation of the organic compounds present in them. And rancidity, what is rancidity? Spoilage of the food materials. Okay, the oxidation reaction in food materials that were left open for a long period is responsible for spoiling of the food, that is called as rancidity. Next one, oxidation number. Now after learning oxidation number, we are going to learn how to determine the oxidation number of certain atoms. Okay, so first of all, what is oxidation number? This is the definition for the oxidation number. Oxidation number, also called oxidation state, is the total number of electrons that an atom either gains or loses in order to form a chemical bond with other atom. Okay, so the number of atoms, okay, number of electrons it either gains or loses for forming bond with the other atom is called as the oxidation number. The sum of the oxidation number of all the atoms in the formula for a neutral compound is 0. For example, NaCl is there. The oxidation number, the addition of the oxidation number of the Na and Cl will be equal to 0. When you have neutral molecule, the sum of the oxidation number of all the atoms will be 0. Sum of the oxidation number of an ion is the same as a charge on that ion. Okay, so if you have an ion, the sum of the oxidation number is equated to the charge of the ion. Negative oxidation number in compounds of two unlike atoms is assigned to the more electronegative atom. Okay, so if you have hydrogen and oxygen, okay, so which is more electronegative in them? Oxygen is more electronegative than hydrogen. So now oxygen will be having the negative oxidation state. Okay, like in H2O, hydrogen will have +1 oxidation state and oxygen will have -2 as a oxidation state. So we will see some of the examples now. Oxidation number of hydrogen and oxygen in water molecule. Okay, so for determining this, you have to know few oxidation state of few atoms, like hydrogen will have +1 oxidation state in most of the cases, and oxygen will also have -2 in most of the cases. There are few exceptions, okay, but they will have these common oxidation state in almost all the compounds. Okay, so now let us take the oxidation number of hydrogen as +1 and oxidation number of oxygen as -2. Okay, now we shall put it in the formula. Okay, so what is the formula? H2O, right? How many hydrogens are there? 2 hydrogen are there. So 2 into the oxidation number of hydrogen is +1. So 2 into +1. Okay, and how many oxygen is there? Just 1 oxygen. So 1 into what is the oxidation number of oxygen? -2 equal to 0. We have to equate it to 0. So 2 into +1 +2. 1 into minus 2, so plus 2 minus 2 equal to 0. So now we know that the oxidation number of hydrogen is plus 1 and oxidation number of oxygen is minus 2. Next one. We shall find the oxidation number of sulfur in H2SO4, sulfuric acid. Okay, now we shall directly put it in the formula. Okay, so how many, what is the formula? H2SO4, how many hydrogens are there? 2 hydrogens are there. So 2 into, what is the oxidation number of hydrogen? Plus 1. Okay, plus next is sulfur, right? So we need to find the oxidation number of sulfur, so let us take it as X. Okay, plus how many oxygens are there? 4. So 4 into oxidation number of oxygen minus 2, right, which is equal to 0. Here we don't have any charge on the compound, so we have to equate it to 0. So 2 into plus 1, 2. And we have X. 4 into minus 2 is minus 8 equal to 0. So what do we have now? Plus 2 minus 8 minus 6. No, when it goes to that side we will have plus 6. So X is equal to plus 6. The oxidation number of sulfur in sulfuric acid is plus 6. Next, last one, oxidation number of chromium in potassium dichromate, right? So we have to find the oxidation number of chromium in potassium dichromate. For that we have to know the oxidation number of oxygen and potassium. We know that the oxidation number of oxygen is minus 2 and for potassium it is plus 1. Okay, so all the alkali metals will have oxidation status plus 1. Okay, now we shall substitute in the formula. So K2, 2 potassium are there. So 2 into plus 1 is the oxidation number of potassium, plus how many chromium is there? 2, no? So we have to find the oxidation number of chromium. So but 2 chromiums are there. So let us take it as 2x. Okay, plus how many oxygens are there? 7. 7 into oxidation number of oxygen is minus 2, which is equal to, total we have to equate it to 0. So 2 into plus 1 plus 2 plus 2x, 7 into minus 2 minus 14 equal to 0. Minus 14 plus 2 it is minus 12. When it goes to that side, plus 12. So 2x is equal to plus 12, x is equal to plus 6. Therefore the oxidation number of chromium in potassium dichromate is plus 6. Okay, so with this the lesson got over. Okay, so we shall see in the next class. Thank you.